Welcome, everyone. This is the 15th Annual Robert P. Maxon Lecture. I'm delighted to welcome our guest speaker today, Ms. Sheri McCoy. The Robert Maxon Endowed Lectureship at the School of Business underwrites an annual distinguished lecture featuring executive thought leaders addressing contemporary global issues. This annual lecture is managed by our Institute for Corporate Responsibility, led by George Washington University School of Business professor Dr. John Foer. The ICR, Institute for Corporate Responsibility, is devoted to development and dissemination of information pertaining to corporate responsibility and corporations' role in society and business, issues that are central to the George Washington University School of Business mission. GWSB, or the George Washington University School of Business, takes pride in developing partnerships with corporations, governments, nonprofit organizations who value educating and preparing future leaders to work at the intersection of government, business, and society. As part of the strategic outreach, this year, GWSB has launched a Trusted Partners program. The Trusted Partners are corporations, not-for-profits, and even governmental organizations that have an interest in the George Washington University School of Business and are committed to instituting best practices of corporate social responsibility, advancing the study of business, and preparing the next generation of business leaders. Tonight, I'd like to recognize PNC, one of our leading trusted partners. This evening, we have Terry Copeland, Vice President of Marketing and Market Manager of Community Development Banking, Roger Wallace, who's a Vice President of Corporate Communications. Would you mind standing up? Thank you for joining us today. As a 2014 sponsor of Lemonade Day, PNC Bank has teamed up with George Washington University School of Business students to empower today's youth to become tomorrow's entrepreneurs. As part of the undergraduate first-year development program, the curriculum to teach corporate social responsibility best practices and infuse the spirit of innovation. In April, the George Washington University School of Business students will attend 60 elementary schools, middle schools, recreation centers, boys and girls clubs throughout the District of Columbia, working with 4th to 7th graders to help start their own and operate their own business using a lemonade stand. So on Saturday, April 5th, look out for lemonade stands across the district and support Lemonade Day. Tonight's lecture by Ms. McCoy is entitled People Driving Change, Turnaround Management, and will focus on many of the issues that are faced by today's corporations and organizations. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of our leaders at George Washington University, President Steve Knapp, the 16th president of George Washington University. Some of his priorities as a president have included enhancing the university's partnership with neighboring institutions, expanding the scope of research, and leading in transformational models for urban sustainability. He was also instrumental in securing a recent $80 million grant for the School of Public Health, now called the Milken Institute School of Public Health. So this is a phenomenal event for the George Washington University community. I'd like to welcome President Knapp.
Thanks very much, Dean Case. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to join the Dean in welcoming you to the 15th Annual Maxon Lecture. And as you've heard, each year the Maxon Lecture brings to our campus a distinguished executive or academic to address critically important issues of global management. And it's my distinct privilege at this point to introduce this year's distinguished speaker. Sheri McCoy serves as Chief Executive Officer and Director of Avon Products Incorporated, one of the world's largest direct sellers and the world's 6th largest beauty company. Under her leadership, the company is rejuvenating its business model and empowering its 6 million Avon representatives to become more successful entrepreneurs. Before she joined Avon in August 2012, Ms. McCoy spent 30 years with Johnson & Johnson, where she held several leadership positions, including that of Vice Chair of the Executive Committee. In that role, she was responsible for the company's global pharmaceutical and consumer product business groups, which accounted for more than 60% of the company's overall revenue. In addition to her role at Avon, Ms. McCoy serves as co-chair of FIRST, for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. That's what that acronym stands for. It's a nonprofit organization that designs programs to motivate students to pursue careers in science and technology. She's a member of the boards of Stonehill College, Catalyst, and Partnership for New York. And in 2008, her leadership was recognized when she was first listed among Fortune magazine's 50 most powerful women in business, and she has now appeared on that list for 6 consecutive years. Finally, I'm delighted to say that she is a proud GW parent. Ms. McCoy's lecture this evening is titled People Driving Change, Turnaround Management. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sheri McCoy.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to be here tonight and have the opportunity to deliver the 15th annual speech as it relates to the Robert Maxon Lecture. I want to also thank President Knapp and thank Dean Kays for inviting me here. It's really a wonderful time and an opportunity for me to share with you what I've learned. As you know, I'm a proud GW parent, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Avon Products. So I want to start by asking you, with a show of hands, how many of you have used an Avon product? Oh, this is good. How many of you have ever personally purchased an Avon product from an Avon lady? Not as strong. How many of you are aware of our work with the Avon breast cancer walks? And our work with domestic violence, our Speak Out campaign against domestic violence? Great. Well, good. What I'd like to talk to you tonight about is a bit about Avon, who we are, what makes Avon such a special company, and some of the challenges that we face today. I'll also share with you the turnaround journey we are on to ensure that Avon remains an iconic brand that consumers know today and that we build the brand for future generations. As part of that story, I hope I will leave you with some insights that might help you continue on your academic or professional journey. To get started, let me introduce you to our company and a few of our top-selling Avon ladies around the world. Let's take a look. As you just saw, Avon is a wonderful business. We have an iconic brand, known globally and loved. People have really strong emotional ties to this brand. Although I know there's still some work to do to get younger consumers interested in our brand, as I asked you in the audience today and saw there were a few people that I'd love to see raise their hands in the future. We have over 6 million independent sales representatives. We have a robust channel built on personal connections. Beauty is a very personal business, and it's important to have that one-to-one selling relationship. We have fantastic products in a large, global, and growing category, and we have a very strong innovation product pipeline. We have 36,000 associates or employees around the world who are committed to our company and to empowering women. We are blessed with a truly meaningful business model. Through our business, we empower millions of women around the world to be self-sufficient, to earn an income, to support themselves, and make better lives for their families. Yes, Avon is a beauty company, but we also help women make their dreams come true. And we also allow them to make sure that they have the financial security for their families. And we've been doing that for more than 125 years. Our company's founder, David H. McConnell, was a traveling salesman. He sold books door to door in the 1870s and the 1880s. It was a tough job. It wasn't easy at that point in time to get from town to town and to be accepted when he knocked on doors, so he began mixing small samples of perfume to give to the women who were at home during the day, and he wanted to get into the home. He gave them the perfume. They became much more interested in the perfume than in the books. So being a true entrepreneur, he decided to give up the book business and sell his perfumes. And the California Perfume Company was formed in a small lab just outside of Wall Street, and eventually we became the Avon Company. He was a smart man, Mr. McConnell. He realized that women would be better selling women's fragrances to women than he was, especially in a door-to-door model. So he enlisted the first Avon lady. Her name was Mrs. P.F.E. Albee. Keep in mind, this was in 1886, when most women did not work outside the home except in agricultural roles. It was also 30 years before women earned the right to vote in this country. But Mr. McConnell knew that women deserved the opportunity to earn their own income and that they could form great relationships based on beauty. It was the birth of modern-day direct selling, an important step in women's empowerment in this country. You may not know the tagline, Ding Dong, Avon Calling, but I'm sure your grandmothers and many of your mothers would all remember it. It's from the 1960s, a time when Avon was thriving. Let's take a look.
Avon Calling. Take time out for beauty when Avon comes calling. Use Avon Cosmetics and you'll be enthralling. For a pleasure-filled break in your daily routine, it's time to take time out for beauty. Avon Calling.
The Avon engine was going strong. Women were selling perfume, powders, and lipsticks to women across the country. Avon was expanding. People loved the brand, and people loved their Avon lady. In the 1970s and 80s, women entered the workforce in massive numbers. People predicted the demise of Avon. But Avon ladies still loved the business, and customers still loved the brands. So what happened? Women began taking the product to their offices as well as shops and in the United States, and they brought the brochures with them, and people still ordered the Avon products. The brand stayed strong. In the early 1990s and early 2000s, Avon saw an unprecedented period of growth. We saw international expansion. Emerging markets were eager for entrepreneurial opportunities. And Avon can start up relatively quickly in markets because we don't need bricks and mortars. We need women. So we saw a huge growth and huge global expansion. And it was a great time for our business. For perspective, today's Avon products are sold in more than 100 countries, and 75% of Avon sales come from emerging markets. In retrospect, today what you'll hear is Wall Street analysts will point out that during the time of immense growth and expansion, Avon underinvested in the business. There was not enough focus on our infrastructure and modernizing our processes. And as a result, when the business began to get bumpy in 2005, the company began to struggle. At the same time, particularly in developed markets, the growth of retail and online sales created new competition. Avon's innovation was still good, but the brand positioning lagged, and the company had not modernized the direct selling channel. As a result, Avon was not capturing new, younger representatives or consumers, particularly in developed markets. And this explains why so few of you raised your hand when I asked you whether you had actually purchased from an Avon lady. And so, with struggling financial performance and many challenges throughout the organization, I took the helm of Avon in April of 2012 to lead the company through the turnaround. No small task. You may be wondering why I signed up for this job when Avon came calling. I did it because I recognize Avon has immense potential. From my first days, I was struck by the fact that we have enormous goodwill toward the company and the brand. And while we need to improve our relevance, the Avon brand is loved, it stands for optimism and hope, and it has extremely high awareness around the world. We have a very strong geographic footprint. More than 85% of our sales are outside the United States. And we have solid business in many attractive emerging markets. And our product pipeline remains strong. Our 6 million representatives around the world are deeply committed to Avon. And it's been clear at the outset that Avon is a mission-driven organization, and people are rooting for us to succeed. So here we are in the midst of a turnaround. And while I've been challenged many times throughout my career, leading Avon on this journey is probably the most important because of the impact that we have on women all over the world. So today I'm going to share my thoughts with you on leading change. Most of my examples will come from Avon's in-progress turnaround, but I believe they apply to any situation where you need to lead change, be it adapting to a new situation at school or in a job, or if there's a change to your boss, or when you get your first promotion and all of a sudden you're leading people. You need to think about what are the things that are critically important as you go through that change. And I believe there are 4 truths for leading change. They are, first, people drive change. Change only happens through people. Second, it takes teamwork. Diverse points of view are absolutely critical. Third, you need a roadmap, and don't be afraid to ask for directions. And fourth, culture matters. Really, really matters. So let's start with, first, people drive change. Change happens through people. Change is not just about having a new strategy. In fact, most people will say having a less than optimal strategy with great execution is more important than having a terrific strategy. And if you think about execution, it's people that drive execution. So getting people all aligned and executing is critically important. Organizations need dedicated people in every corner of the company to help drive change and move the business forward. Every single employee plays an important role in driving our business. And as CEO, my first job is to listen to them, engage them, and help them develop their leadership skills. People need to be heard and be engaged and understand why change is important. So how do you do this? It starts with listening. The first thing I do is listen. And as a large company, we have a number of ways to gauge what our associates are thinking. We have inputs from our culture survey that tell us what people say. But what I find is it's most important to have that face-to-face contact at all levels of the organization. With the geographic footprint that I mentioned, I spend a lot of time on planes. And I travel to all the countries that we participate in. And what I find when I'm there is I have the opportunity to meet with our representatives, but I also meet with our associates at all levels of the company. And what I ask them is I ask them, what do they need to understand to help drive that change? How are they feeling? Why do they think it's important to change? Are they getting the support and guidance they need for this change? And what I find by listening, I can make better decisions about how we can help our people, ensure that we inspire them and get them motivated to drive that change. It's important that you put the right people in the right jobs. And what I mean by right people, they need to have the right skill set and the right mindset. Skill set means, does this person have the capability or the capacity to do the job? And if they don't, are there ways we can support them to give them the help that they need to make them successful? Mindset means, do they have a positive attitude? Do they have the intellectual capacity to be able to connect the dots and make sure that they understand the broader context that we're working in? Do they have the emotional intelligence to lead through change and inspire others around them? In other words, will people follow them? As a leader, you need to bring out the best in individuals around you. Encourage them to take risks, to step outside their comfort zone, and to stretch and develop. Create an expectation that people should learn from their mistakes, not hide from them. This is the way you grow your organization's leaders. So always remember, people drive change and drive results, and they need to understand how they work together, which leads me to the second truth. It takes teamwork. One team, one Avon. This is a phrase that you will hear daily at Avon. It's our mantra, and it reminds us that at the end of the day, we're going to succeed or fail together, and we will succeed. Wall Street doesn't care about Jim in R&D or Samantha in marketing and their work. Wall Street cares about Avon's overall performance. Our representative isn't thinking about Anne in the distribution center or Bill in finance. What she cares about is getting her order on time so she can better serve her customers. So as one team, we put our issues on the table, work together to find a solution, and then move forward to execute with excellence. And it starts with the tone at the top. I'm a strong believer that the best performing teams include a diverse group of people who have various backgrounds and experiences to draw upon. That leads to healthy debates, and out of healthy debates are born the best ideas. When you look at your own academic experience, it's most likely that the classes where you've learned the most are ones that included a professor who encouraged students with diverse points of view to speak up. Or it's a class where you were involved with a team project and you recognize how much better it is to be on a team where everyone had different points of view but collaborated equally with the same goal in mind. This constructive conflict or healthy tension between differing points of view is absolutely crucial in the business world to ensure that you have an organization that is exploring the right options and connecting the dots between the varying perspectives of stakeholders. When I arrived at Avon, I started immediately with my own team. Like most companies, we have an executive committee with individuals who lead major functions and business units. I knew my team needed solid, veteran Avon executives who really understood the business. But I also knew that we needed some fresh outside perspective to help us crack the issues that had plagued the company for many years. And I knew we needed an executive team that better reflected the gender and geographic mix of our business. So the team is now in place. Their Avon tenure runs from 3 months to nearly 30 years. And as a team, they bring very diverse experience and perspectives to the table. We have rich, healthy debates and many different points of view at every meeting and on every call. And that is meaningful because it helps us arrive at the best decisions. In fact, your own Robert Maxim, for whom this lecture series is named, was recognized widely for his acute sensitivities to diverse cultures and perspectives. Working in Japan during a time when foreigners were not very common, he was adept at raising diverse opinions in a collaborative and productive way. And that helped him rise through increasingly senior posts at Mobil Corporation in Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Every good leader is also a coach. So with my team, I need to make sure I've got the right players on the field lined up against the right issues at the right time. I need to make sure that everyone is playing in position, that they're course-correcting where needed, and that we're celebrating wins, no matter how small they are, along the way. And that we're constantly working toward a common goal. Which brings me to the third truth of leadership. You need a roadmap. Avon's turnaround is a journey, and for us to succeed, we need a clear map to guide us along the way. Particularly in times of change, your people need to understand what is expected of them, how they can achieve it, and how success will be measured along the way. Without this, people can easily lose their way. I outlined a vision for Avon very early after my arrival at the company. It's about restoring the company to its rightful place as an iconic beauty brand with products that consumers love and demand, reestablishing our position in global leadership and direct selling, and importantly, continuing to focus on our mission of empowering women. Everyone knows the vision, and many can recite it within the company. I strongly believe that leaders must lay out an optimistic vision for the future, and that it inspires people and drives them to want to change. Change takes time, but I'm confident if you focus on the strategy and stay true to it, the end result will be favorable. A vision tells you where we want to go. Our strategic framework tells us how we will get there. I refer to this in many of our town hall meetings around the world. We share it with our investors and our analysts. And this year, we further detailed the path to profitable growth. It's critically important as we look at how we change our business. You can see that we need to do three things. We need to make sure we stay true to our core, which is direct selling, but make sure we contemporize it. So as we look at that, we now have our representatives with Facebook applications so they can reach out to their customer base. We have mobile applications so people can order directly from their iPhone. Those are the kind of things that we need to do to continue to build our business. So it's staying true to the core, but using technology to help make sure that we're relevant in today's environment. Secondly, we need to make sure that we're looking at the geographic mix. As I mentioned, we have 75% of our business in emerging markets. What are the strategies for emerging markets and how do they differ from those for developed markets? So getting those strategies right is critically important, and making sure we're investing differentially is needed as we look forward. And third, how do we expand our brand and channels? Are there ways that we go beyond the direct selling channel? And one of the things that we are doing this year in the United States, this summer, we will be introducing an e-commerce site. We'll allow people to order directly online. If you have a representative, that representative gets the benefit, she gets the commission. So what we're doing is working in partnership with her, but we recognize in some cases people will come into the franchise and don't necessarily want an Avon representative. So that allows us to continue to build the brand and make sure we're bringing new consumers into the fold. Our game plan to turn around the business is not really a secret. We spend a lot of time with investors, a lot of times with employees, making sure people understand why we're doing what we're doing. In fact, all business activities have to support our strategic framework. We remind our teams all the time, if it doesn't support the framework, stop doing it. We are that literal. In addition, for the senior leader team, which is the top 200 leaders from around the world, I hold quarterly webcasts. I update them regularly on our scorecard, being very clear about what's working and what's not working. What do we need to improve? We're committed to staying the course and making sure that the business improves. But I will say that turnarounds are not linear. So we know that we've hit some bumps and we'll continue to hit bumps along the way. And when we do, it's crucial that we have the discipline and the external focus to understand what's gone wrong and what we need to do to course correct. To do that, we looked at it, the root cause in many different ways. One way that I find particularly helpful is what we refer to as the 5 whys. When something goes wrong in any situation, don't just ask your team why just once. The first answer probably is not the root cause. Ask them 5 times. So being here in Washington, D.C., I thought the Washington Monument example would be a good one to share with you. How many of you are familiar with the Washington Monument example? Most. For those of you who are not, the Washington Monument was disintegrating. Why? Harsh chemicals were being used to clean it. Why were harsh chemicals being used? Because there was an abnormally large amount of pigeon droppings needed to be cleaned off regularly. Why was there an abnormally large amount of pigeon droppings on the Washington Monument? Because pigeons were feasting on the abundance of spiders on the Washington Monument. Why was there an abundance of spiders on the Washington Monument? Because spiders eat gnats, and there were a lot of gnats at the Washington Monument. Why were there so many gnats at the Washington Monument? Because they were attracted to the light at dusk. So, what was the solution to the Washington Monument's disintegration? Turning the lights on later every day. Not the first intuitive solution, a solution that could be only arrived at after asking why 5 times. Asking why is like asking for directions. And I believe that being willing to ask for directions is a critical factor in leading a successful turnaround. Our business in Brazil, which is our largest market, was struggling with service issues, getting packages to representatives on time and with their full order. And this was negatively impacting our representative and our business results. It took a number of years for the team to resolve the core issues and stabilize service levels. But once they did, the team in Brazil turned to the future. How could they make it even better? The general manager of Avon Brazil raised his hand for help. Where in the Avon Global organization do we have the best service quality, and how can we learn from them? The management team in Brazil, which is our largest market, is about over a $2 billion business, they actually went to a much smaller market. They went to Central Europe, where they saw that they were doing a much better job with service and that they had really looked at how to modernize the business. So they went there, they learned, and by raising their hand, they were able to come up with new solutions for the future. We've worked very hard over the past 2 years to create a culture where raising your hand for help is a good thing. We reward associates for reaching across the organization to share best practices and good ideas. And it's important to celebrate the wins and reinforce what is needed to evolve our culture. Which brings me to our final truth about leading in times of change. Culture matters. It matters a lot. A company's culture comes from the values and norms that influence how employees behave. Oftentimes, these are unwritten norms and assumed beliefs. And cultures don't change quickly. They evolve over time, and frankly, they can make or break the success of a company. When you go into any new environment, be it a new job, school, team, it's important to first observe and appreciate the culture you're in, without being judgmental or acting in a way that could cause you to alienate yourself at the outset. You may not have realized it, but you probably did a cultural assessment when you were choosing a university. I'm sure there are many factors you considered: academic programs, athletics, location, cost, but when you came on campus to visit, you experienced the culture. How did the people interact with one another? What are the expectations for behavior? How did you think that you would fit in? And as a leader, you need to take some time to assess the culture. What are the positive aspects of the culture that you want to bring forward into the future? And what are the aspects that need to evolve or be changed? And when driving change, it is critically important to acknowledge the good and the important values to maintain, while focusing on the critical few that you want to evolve or change. Because you need to bring the whole entire organization along with you. When I arrived at Avon nearly 2 years ago, I learned quickly that the people within the company are passionate about what they do. They believe in the mission of the company, and they care about turning around the business. They have a very high level of engagement with the company. And as a mission-driven company, that is part of the culture that's important to cherish and maintain. But I also learned that the kind, friendly, and entrepreneurial spirit of Avon that was inherent in our culture had morphed into some less productive aspects. The company had a culture where people were afraid to challenge the status quo, and they lost the ability for constructive conflict. This led to very slow decision-making, frequent changes in strategy, a lot of rework, causing inefficiencies all across the organization. This cultural trait enabled passive-aggressive behavior and stalled the business in many areas, resulting in poor execution and lack of discipline. Last year, we introduced a leadership and action behavior model for all associates to help reshape our culture. It starts at the top of the organization, just like the vision and strategic framework. It must be modeled through all levels of the company. We built the behaviors into the performance review process and asked associates, leaders, and their peers to review them on these important behaviors. They are accountable, which means say what you will do, and do what you say. Courageous, be brave, and challenge the status quo. Decisive, embrace diverse ideas and take action. Inspiring, see a better future and make it a reality. You can see from this image here that the leadership and action behavior surrounds 5 principles: integrity, trust, respect, belief, and humility. Those are the 5 founding principles of Avon as expressed by our founder, Mr. McConnell, back in the days of selling perfume door to door. Those do not change. It would be foolish to change the essence of the company. But to bring about change, we need to reinforce the kind of behaviors that will help us drive the business forward. And at the heart of our model are our representatives and consumers, because every decision we make has to be in their best interest. I've mentioned several times that Avon is a mission-driven company. Our mission is to empower women. While as a culture we maintain an emotional tie to that mission, we had lost the thread a bit and what we needed to do to deliver on that mission. So at the end of the day, it's all about our representatives, the Avon ladies and men who are core to our business. So Avon's entire strategy has to center on that representative, giving her a competitive earnings opportunity and the tools she needs to be successful. We know when she wins, Avon wins. And we need to make sure that she has the right products for her consumer so that she has a strong selling proposition. So by putting her at the center, we have refocused our entire organization. I want to share with you a story of Rosalie, an Avon representative in the Philippines. And hopefully you'll understand why we at Avon are so committed to Avon's success. Let's take a look.
I'm Rosalie, nanay, at isa rin po akong Avon sales representative. Maaga ako nakapag-asawa. Mas pinili kong itaguyod ang aking pamilya kaysa tapusin ang aking pag-aaral. Mas binigyan ko sila ng priority. Alam mo, hindi ko in-expect na sa pag-join ko sa Avon, ito pala yung makakatupad ng mga pangarap ko para sa mga anak ko. Tinutulungan ako ni Shane sa aking Avon business. Pareho kami ni Shane. Love magme-makeup. Oo. Dati, ang liit-liit lang niya. But then, look at her now. She's my best friend. Alam mo, nakikita ko, mas malaki ang potential niya kaysa sa akin eh. Mas gagaling pa to sa akin eh. Kapares ni Shane, gusto ko rin maranasan niya kung ano yung masasayang bagay, magagandang bagay na nakukuha ko dito. Nang mag-join ako sa Avon bilang isang sales representative, binago ng Avon ang buhay ko. Napaaral ko na rin yung aking mga anak. Nung graduation ni Shane, nakita ko siya nasa ibabaw siya ng stage. At sinabi niya sa akin, "Thank you, Mom." Pamamagitan niya na isa katuparan ko na halos yung pangarap ko. Fulfilled ako. Avon, pinaganda mo ang buhay ko.
Become an Avon representative. Avon, you make it beautiful.
In the Philippines, she is the Avon of today, and that's why we are all working so hard to turn around our business. And I can say that while we are only part of the way through our turnaround, I'm confident we're taking the right approach. We have the people, we have the vision. Our path forward is clear and measurable. And by adhering to the 4 truths of leading change, we will get there. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts about organizational change. This is a topic that I'm personally interested in as a professor of management, and it looks like we may have a new case study for our change course this summer. So thanks for sharing. I'm going to start out by asking you some questions, and maybe we can get the audience to ask some questions in a few minutes. Avon is a company that has a lot of strong traditions, and traditions are good, but oftentimes they can be barriers to implementing change. So how do you implement change in an organization that has such strong traditions? What are some of the barriers that you experience?
I think one of the things that's most important as driving change is to acknowledge the things that are good and that won't change. Sometimes I've seen people come in and try to drive change, and they'll focus on the negative aspects. And it's important as we're trying to drive change to say what will stay. So as I talked earlier about the 5 principles, those are things that will not change. And then picking 2 or 3 things that will change and getting the people that are going to be the change agents to help support it, people that have been within the company for a long time, as well as fresh perspectives, is critically important. Because people, particularly as we're driving change and bringing new people in, we need to make sure that we get that blend of people who've been with the company, who are influential leaders. They may not be at the top of the house, but they're the ones that influence the people that help drive that change. Getting them focused on 2 or 3 things and making a compelling story. People know that we need to turn our business based on where we are. The question is, how do we make sure that there's 2 or 3 things they can clearly and tangibly get their arms around and then drive it that way?
Interesting. So it's preserving some of the traditions.
Absolutely.
And identifying which ones you want to preserve, but also then identifying what are the new things that we need to implement.
Absolutely.
Great. So you may know that the George Washington University School of Business is leading the way at getting women on corporate boards through our various programs like On the Board, which was sponsored by a gift from Linda Rabbit, one of our board of trustees. Do you think that there are specific skills that are different for women than men in navigating the corporate boardroom? Are there things that you have to do differently?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I see just even getting women on boards is, first of all, getting women on slates for board positions is the starting point. It's critically important that there's many talented women, and for whatever reason, they're not always brought to the forefront. So it starts with making sure that they're on the slates. Once they get on that board, it's important for them to make sure that they're offering their perspective on the business, whatever it is that they bring, whether it be academics or business, and making sure that their voice is heard and speaking out. And I'm very fortunate at the Avon. We have 6 women on our board. 6 of 10 are women. And wow. It is helpful to have women band together and make sure that the voice is being heard. I do think it's important to have more than just one woman on the board, because I think that you get support and you can network with someone else. So I think that's where I've seen it work exceptionally well, is when there's more than one woman on a board.
Great, fantastic. So let's turn a little bit about just your own leadership journey, something that we talk a lot about here at the School of Business. Tell us a little bit about your journey. You spent a number of years, 30 years with Johnson & Johnson, and Avon was your first role as CEO. Mm-hmm. So you had to. What were some of the skills that you needed to move to that position, and what were some of the challenges of taking on that role?
Well, one of the things that was similar is no matter where I've worked or what job I've had, it's about getting the right people around you and motivating them toward a goal. So that was consistent. And whether I was in consumer or pharmaceuticals or medical devices, it was the same thing. So coming to Avon, it was also about the people. The difference is when you're the CEO, you're in public spotlight all the time. And so anything that I say internally can go externally, and I have to be careful what I say internally. So that's one major difference that is different than if you're within the organization. So being the public face is critically important. Certainly the representatives are our face to the consumer, but I represent the company relative to investors or different things, and being clear about what my role is, what's important to say for Avon, I think is just different than if you're working within the company, because you're always on and people are always looking at what is she saying, what are unintended consequences of what she said or didn't say. And so being aware of that is critically important, and that's different.
Great. Well, some of the CEOs we've studied have found that it's difficult to make the transition from managing the details to managing the big picture. How have you been able to make that transition?
Having great people. My thing is getting the right people. I know myself, I don't want to be micromanaged, and so I want to hire people that really want to take a portion. So as an example, the head of Latin America, he's on the ground day to day dealing with his team. I'm not going to add a lot of value there. I'm going to hold him accountable for what his goals and objectives are, making sure he gets the right team in place, but he needs to be making those decisions. And so I know that's how I like to be managed, and that's how I manage my team.
Great, thanks. Let's turn to the audience now and see if there are any questions out in the audience. Yes. We have a microphone right here.
Hi. My question is regarding the future of the direct selling model, like in the United States. What you mentioned, like selling through mobile apps and on Facebook. what other changes do you think you might be able to see in the future of direct selling here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think it's critically important that we use technology to make sure that we're doing that. I think that there will always be, it will be a small, as an example, about 10% of beauty products today are purchased through direct selling in the United States. In markets like Colombia, about 45 to 50% are purchased through direct selling. So you'll have a very different model there. There will always be an opportunity in the United States for people to earn money, so we need to make sure that we have the right product portfolio and make it accessible. So the mobile apps, et cetera, are critically important. But we also believe that e-commerce, marrying e-commerce with that, is a way to grow that, so that if a representative can send a tweet or a text to her customer and say, go online and order it, get it shipped directly, that's a way where the representative still get commission. She doesn't have to do as much work because she doesn't have to deliver it. That will allow us to bring more people into the business. But it will never be as big as a market where it's just emerging and the only way people can get products is through direct selling versus retail. But understanding that retail and online piece and being competitive with that is critically important. That's probably the area that we missed as we were growing so fast geographically that we weren't paying attention to how do we evolve our model.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you ever had to change your strategic framework?
This one's been in place for about 18 months. I wouldn't say we changed it. It's about growth, simplification, and organization. What we've done is evolved how are we going to drive growth. And I think over time, as we get stronger and certain markets get stronger, we will add to it and change it in a different way. But at the end of the day, if you look at what's critically important for us, is to show a top-line growth, to make sure that we're driving cost out so we have a good operating margin, and make sure we have people that are going to develop the business for now and the future. So I see those pillars as being the same, but the components and the tactics will evolve over time.
So as a publicly traded company, you're under immense pressure to meet your quarterly goals, but also to have this long-term focus. So how do you manage those two things?
It's difficult. I think it's really important that we always stay focused on what the long-term prize is. It's very easy to make decisions to hit a quarter, either drive sales, cut costs, and that may not be the long term. Obviously, you have to make some decisions in the short term, or you won't have a long term. But I always tell my team that we need to be focused on making sure we're showing progress. And sometimes we will see progress internally a lot faster than it may translate into financial performance. And being clear about the progress we're seeing internally, and then making sure we're doing the right things for the long term, recognizing that we still have to weather the short term issues.
Yeah, because you don't have the luxury of like a startup where you don't have to manage the bottom line. You have to manage the bottom line and the top line at the same time.
It's top
and
line,
cash.
bottom line, and cash. Yeah. That's because people have a choice of where they're going to put their money, and they're going to put. And I'm very sensitive to our investors. They're going to put their money where they think they're going to get a return. Some people want, if you're a hedge fund, you want return quickly. If you're in it for the long term, then you're going to bet on the principles of the company, and do you believe that they're playing in interesting spaces, and they'd be willing to stay the long term because they believe the outcome is going to be better. For us, what we'll see today is, we would love long-term investors because it is going to take us time to turn around that business.
Yeah, does it tempt you to try to get into areas that you may not have a competency in, but that are high growth?
Yeah, I think that's dangerous. I mean, I think part of what we wrestled with during the last several years is we were chasing new strategies, and in some cases we were going into places where we didn't have the competency. And so when I showed the chart where I said the 3 areas for growth, it was our core first, it was making sure we have the right geographic strategies, and then looking at how we go beyond into e-commerce, et cetera. That's a smaller piece. We can't go, if we were to shut down our direct selling tomorrow and go someplace else, we wouldn't be able to do that because that's not the DNA of the company. So knowing what you're really good at, and then taking pieces of that and figuring out how you evolve that and expanding is critically important in the turnaround. And it does get tempting from the associate standpoint where they'll say, well, let's go try this or let's go do that. And that's dangerous. I think one of my biggest challenges is to get the organization to stay the course and stay focused on the strategic framework. Let the tactics evolve as we go, or if something's not working, we'll course correct. But staying focused is critically important.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What role have your different degrees had in your career?
Well, so my undergraduate degree is in textile chemistry, and my master's is in chemical engineering. And the first 15 years of my career, I was in research and development on the product development side. And I love product, I love problem solving. And I would say even though I went over into sales and marketing, it's always about solving problems, and it's about getting great people. So whether I was running a lab with scientists, it was getting them motivated and excited about the possibilities. If it was when I was running a marketing organization, it was them, how do you create the brand and get excited about that, and how do you get that synergy, that diverse perspective to be able to do great things together. So I think my degrees, I always tell people, don't get so hung up on what your degree says. Experiment, try things. You want people that have critical thinking skills. And even as I look to hire people, I look for people who have had some ups and downs, have had very diverse experience, who are willing to take on a challenge, who've learned from their mistakes. Because if you think about today's world, it's vast, and you can never predict what's going to happen. So you want people that aren't really narrow, but that can think in a way that allows them to bring diverse perspectives and not be haunted or daunted by the fact that things are happening around them. And so I think it's important. But problem solving would be the one that I would point to the most. Thanks.
Yes.
Have you, since you've come on board, done any kind of blind surveys and studies of taking Avon products and all of the competitors within the Western world to do like a makeover where the makeup artist even doesn't know which one, and then to see how Avon stands up to the Lancomes and or the L'Oreals or whoever you're going to compete with?
Thank you for asking that question, because yes, and we have great products. So in blind test, we test versus the top beauty brands, and what we see is in skincare, our new product, which was actually the first AHA that was introduced in the market, does exceptionally well. Our color products stack up against all the competitors. And so as we look at it, for us, it's not necessarily a product challenge, it's more of a brand challenge and a pricing and access challenge. So it's not that we have to revamp the R&D capabilities. We're really strong. It's really the marketing and the access piece of it. Thanks.
We've got time for two more questions, I think. Yes.
You have a company, a lot of women, you've had a really exciting career. There seems to be this big debate in the country again about women having it all, work and family, and I'm wondering if you want to weigh in on that debate.
That's always a tough one. I tell people, and I coach a lot of and mentor a lot of women at different stages in their career, and I've actually mentored or coached women out of companies because I think it's because that was right for that individual. I think it really is a personal choice. I think that I learned myself, growing up in corporate America, that you have to balance things, and you have to. I think as I've gotten older, I'm much better at knowing what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, being willing to delegate, recognizing what's important to me, and I've been very happy that I have had a successful career. I have a great husband and a great family, and so I feel that I can have what I want. I don't know if you have if you have it all, because you're always making trade-offs and there's always something going on. But in the end, I feel that I'm happy, I know myself, and I think sometimes women just need to know themselves and what makes them happy. And some of my best friends are stay-at-home moms, some of them are in the corporation. I think it's really, and I actually have stay-at-home dads that are friends of mine as well. So I think it's really knowing what's important to you and how you define success is really the advice that I give to women and men.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Yes.
Well, I think you brilliantly, with your team, created a wonderful mantra, the one team, one Avon. That's a turnaround in and of its own. But my question is actually, now you've been at two major, very large corporations. They are not small. So then the reality is the majority of people won't be at that larger corporation. And what would you give if you could boil it down into something more useful for the normal or the smaller size corporations? What would you give as your comments for a CEO or people running those organizations?
Yeah, again, I would go back to the point about getting people that share the vision for that, getting the people around you that share the same vision and aspirations that you have for your company, no matter how big or how small it is. Unless you're going to do something completely on your own and never talk to anyone, you need people that are going to support that. So I still believe, and I talk and I help with a lot of biotech startups from my prior life. And what I say to them is have a good proposition. So you need to have in that case, a clinical reason. Why are you different than another company? Why would people want to be part of you? And then how do you get people around you that are better than you, that are going to help take that company to the next level? And my legacy at Avon is to get people that are better than me and leave the company better than I found it. And I think that doesn't matter how big the company is or how small the company is. Thanks.
Great. Well, Sheri, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been
Thank you.
quite a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to invite President Knapp up, and we'd like to present you with a small token. This is the George Washington University Mom sweatshirt.
Great.
So.
Thank you. Ronnie would be very happy.
More than a parent.
Thank you.
Oh, there's no picture. Okay, I thought there was a picture. Okay. All right. Okay.
That's okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.